If the earnings were so great, then why is the stock trending downwards? In today's video, we're going to walk you through all of that from the technical lens. But before we jump onto the chart, let's take a look at this. Revenue beat, EPS beat, guiding above where it should be for Q3, which shows growth year over year. Revenue is up 50%, adjusted EPS is up, net income is at 2.3 billion, which used to be 872 million about a year ago. We are up on data center, obviously. Who cares about gaming down 31% and operating expense down 3.4 billion? Of course, I'm joking, but gross margins are up 56% from 55% before. And here's the best part. The guidance is great. Q3 revenue guide is sitting at 13 billion and data centers to more than double for next year, which is 2027. So when you see an earnings report like this, you cannot be bearish. You're just more and more ambitious and optimistic on the stock. But then why is the stock trending downwards? Why is the weekly candle not breaking out above $600? There has to be a reason. So for that, let's break down this weekly chart on AMD and figure out why we're not breaking out to the upside with such great earnings report and what could be the path moving forward. I'm not saying that we're never going to break out, but I do think that we won't be able to break out as soon as everybody wants it to, even with such great earnings report. Because the path forward, when you look at technicals, is very different than what the fundamental picture is showing. For example, notice this last impulse move on AMD from 190 all the way to 584. This was almost a 200% move. Now, a move like this takes a little bit time to digest. The people who purchase on these price ranges are exiting and new people are coming in. And also understand that the market is always trying to price in the good and the bad news that is coming up, which is why a lot of times you see stocks go up before a major news, but then they stall, just like we're seeing that on AMD, because the move for that earning report is already done. What do you think the market was trying to do when we ran from 196 all the way to 550 plus? The market was trying to price in the move that we just got. Not the move, sorry, the earnings report we just got. So now if you are reading this earnings report and you're thinking maybe now is the right time to get in, you are already too late. And if you are someone who's already invested in AMD a long time ago and you're just trying to understand the path forward, I will go through that as well. But I just want to mention that this earnings was already priced in with a move that was over 200%. Now, there's a very interesting similarity that I found on AMD and NVIDIA that I want to go over next. Let's go to NVIDIA's chart here. These are some old trend lines that I drew. Let's just ignore that for a second. Let me remove all of these. And while we're on the topic of NVIDIA, I do want to say that I am expecting a pullback on NVIDIA below 165 region. And I've made a video about it too. If you want to look at that, feel free to scroll back in my videos and check that out. But what I want you to notice is this move on NVIDIA where we were trying to break out. We got a pullback here. We broke out again. And then we created this low that got swept by a previous low. In fact, let's take a picture of this. Let's take a screenshot of this exact fractal. And then let's go to AMD and let me show you the similarity. Now, if we go to the AMD, I'm going to switch from weekly candle to the daily chart. Let's zoom into the daily chart and see if we can find a similarity between the screenshot I shared. We got this pullback on AMD, which was around $400, and NVIDIA did the same thing a while back. We broke out to the upside. We did the same thing on AMD, but understand that this is a daily chart and this is a weekly chart. So there's a little bit difference here. Then let me create a trend line right here, which I also have drawn on NVIDIA. Let me draw one here, which is the supply zone on AMD. And notice that every time AMD pushes above 550, we get rejected. And the same thing was happening on NVIDIA on a weekly chart rather than a daily chart. And then we came down to sweep this level on AMD. And then we're trying to push back up, and the same thing happened with NVIDIA. Now, the difference is that this time around, where there were some major news where the indices were also coming down with NVIDIA, but at this point with AMD, we are tapping into all-time highs for the indices. So when I look at this chart on the daily side, I do see a path where we do break out. We hold the earnings around here. we kind of consolidate maybe for a day, two, maybe a week, and then break out to the upside. But at the same time, looking at this entire 200% move, I do think the market does need a little bit more time to consolidate. And this is a very confusing time because on one hand, I want to be a little bearish and I want to say that, hey, let's come down and sweep this previous low and then maybe try to fill the gap. And in this case scenario, we come down, we wick all the way down to fill the gap and then continue back higher. And in the weekly chart, it will look something like this. So a part of me wants to believe that this might be the path forward, but at the same time, when I look at the daily chart and when I compare this to the NVIDIA chart that I mentioned before, I feel like we might be getting ready for a breakout. And in times like this, it's better to just stay out of the market and just wait it out and see what happens. But if I overlap this with SPY chart, where I do believe that we are headed into a midterm correction, I think that there's a higher chance, I would give it a 60 to 70% chance in my personal opinion, that AMD comes back down in October, November time when SPY corrects. And if SPY corrects, but October is about a month and a half, 2 months away from today. So even in that time frame, we could break out to the upside and then reject and come down low. Let me remove these drawings so it's not confusing. So if AMD was to follow the NVIDIA path, we do have time to break out here. Let's look at an NVIDIA chart here one more time. Let me flip to the weekly chart. And this bottom formation was in April timeframe, and we pushed up all the way till 4 months later, which was August, and then pulled back and pushed even higher towards November timeframe. But remember, NVIDIA is a weekly chart versus AMD is a daily chart. So AMD is making moves a lot faster than NVIDIA in this case scenario. And if we were to do the same thing in half the time, so instead of 4 months, we take 2 months, I think we do have time to push back up towards 700 plus. Let me remove these previous drawings. And if AMD was to follow NVIDIA, instead of 4 months, we can push it in 2 months and then still be on time for the October correction. I also made a video on that. So if you want to understand where SPY is headed for the rest of the year, feel free to go watch that. And moving forward for next almost 2 months, I will continuously talk about this midterm year because market is tapping into all-time highs and everybody's feeling the FOMO. And I made this channel specifically for the reason so I can help people pull back and sit back and watch the market from a different perspective, from a little bit of a zoomed out perspective, and we only take trades that are predictable. So the question is AMD following the same path as NVIDIA or not? And I think in the next 2 months, we'll really find out. And honestly, the trader in me really wants to zoom in even towards the 15-minute, or actually let's do a 1 hour time frame. I do want to look at the 1 hour time frame and kind of make a prediction here. If we were to reverse, now this is the trader in me coming out right now. I think this is the first time I'm zooming into a 1 hour chart on my YouTube video. I really don't want to do this, but I think that if we can pull back from the zone we're in under 456, 455 area and sweep this level, there is a chance that we can bottom off here and continue higher. We just have to see how AMD is digesting this earning report, and we can clearly see that the path is pretty clean. We swept the major level on the daily chart here, just like we did on NVIDIA. And you might wonder, why do I think we'll sweep this particular candle on the hourly or 4-hour chart after earnings? And that's because of manipulation. A lot of stocks, when they hit earnings, the charts look like they're about to, run through the floor and never come back. And we saw something very similar on ServiceNow about a week and a half ago, where notice how the earnings came out, we tried to push up, and the very next day we came down below the previous low. We swept this level, and when the market was down here, and if you were watching this live, you would probably thought, just like I thought, that we will continue lower, we'll break 90 and we'll go down towards 80s and 70s. And right then and there, the market reversed and we haven't looked back since. So these manipulation tactics are very important for market to continue higher. And This is what my channel is all about. I'm always looking for those zones where market reverses instantly. Those are extreme liquidity zones where institutions jump in. They know the market is at all-time high on when it comes to fears, and that is our opportunity to attack. So I think if AMD is to reverse, we might be headed into a breakout right now. And I think the more I look at this AMD chart, the more I kind of want to believe that we will manipulate the markets, come back below this previous candle to run stop losses, and then run back up towards 580 and 600 plus. So only time will tell. This was actually really exciting. I might start doing a little bit more zoomed in videos where I'm showing you the full hourly and 4-hour candles. I just get a little worried when I talk about day trades and swing trades that are on such short time frames, because people have these gambling instincts, and the last thing I want is for people to lose their hard-earned money, which is why I look for weekly candles. But if you like the content, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and let me know if you would like this type of charting. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.